Generals, at ease. As you're aware, the current crisis facing Folan is quite grave. Our country is being torn apart and the treaty has failed. Our supplies are running low, and if we don't find a way to strengthen our forces soon, then we won't last much longer. However, after the valiant sacrifice of several spies, we were able to obtain plans for the enemy's formation, and we've discovered that there is an opening. If we can send a small team in at this exact moment, then we may be able to finally bring down the Flame Emperor while they're vulnerable. I know that this is a crazy plan. I know that the chance of success are slim to none and that this is practically a suicide mission, but I wouldn't be asking this of you if it wasn't absolutely positively... What's that sound? Wait, I know that sound. No, it can't be happening now. Not now. It's someone chewing gum in my class. Who is it? Hilda, was it you? Yeah, I see those lips moving. Come on, hand it over there. All right, yep, right there. You can get this back after class, all right? Next time, make sure that you bring enough for everybody. Stupid freaking kids. We're trying to win a war here, and they don't know how to share their freaking gum. Now, where was I? All right. I know what I'm asking of you sounds insane. I know that this is a suicide mission, and not all of you are going to come back from this, but I understand the weight of this situation. I wouldn't ask this of you if there was any other way, because I hold every single one of you close to my heart. The bonds that we have established between each other have made every single one of you like a brother or sister to me. And are you passing notes? Give me that! Sylvain, what are you doing in the middle of this? Leone, do you like me? Yes, definitely, absolutely. Oh, real mature, Sylvain! You've got detention. Wait. That means you can't go on the suicide mission. Everyone but Sylvain has detention. Why'd we set up our base of operations in a high school? Here's our review of Fire Emblem Three Houses. Fire Emblem is a long-running Nintendo franchise that has a die-hard fan base, and yet its reach is still just limited enough that whenever a new character is added to Smash Bros., the gaming community still has to ask, who? I mean, heck, I actually love the last two games, Fire Emblem Fates and Awakening, but if you asked me to name any game before those two, I would probably tell you to look behind you and then run away before you turn back around. But with the release of Three Houses on the Switch, Nintendo is hoping to finally change all that and make this a new favorite for a whole new generation of gamers. And right off the bat, you can tell they're trying to mix things up because while the previous games all centered around armies at war, this one centers around a school that happens to be at war. Okay, it's not entirely different, but honestly, I love this saying because it contains so many of the elements that defines a Fire Emblem story, so that way the new fans get a good understanding of what it is, but it's still different enough to feel refreshing for the older audience. But why are you at this school? What is the premise of this installment? Well, you play as Byleth, a character that I instantly renamed because I had no idea how to pronounce that. And you can choose to have Byleth be either a man or a woman, and I chose a woman because while she might think it's a good idea to wear hot pants and fishnet stockings in the war, the design of the male version of this character might as well just be a blank space that says JRPG protagonist. That's right, order your very own JRPG protagonist today! Now available in green. Now Byleth is the child of Gerald, a mercenary who used to belong to this church, but left long ago for mysterious reasons that I'm sure are in no way tied to you. After running into the members of the church one day, they convince him to come back and he brings you along, where you are instantly made the newest teacher of this school because of reasons.
Besides, it'd be one thing if you got brought on as a knight, but a professorship, unprecedented.
After joining on and becoming a professor, you have to choose one of the three houses to teach, each of which represents the various nations of Fodlan. You can choose between the Black Eagles, a cunning house that swears loyalty to the Adrestian Empire, the Blue Lions, a noble and honorable house that hails from the kingdom of Fergus, or the Golden Deer, a peaceful house that pledges loyalty to the Leicester Alliance. Or for anyone out there who doesn't know what any of that means, let me simplify it for you. The preps, the jocks, or the lovable outcast. Guess which house I chose? Yes, welcome to the Golden Deer, the meatball-style camp from across the lake of Fire Emblem characters. The 80s outcasts of losers that you want to cheer on so they can stick it to the man. There's Hilda, the ditz, Leone, the tomboy, Raphael, the muscle man with a small brain but a big heart, Ignatz, the nerds, Lorenz, the rich kid who is way out of his element, Lysynthia, the young kid with a chip on her shoulder, Marianne, the one who for the love of God really needs some sleep, and their leader Claude, the Bill Murray. As their teacher, you'll lead them into battle, and for anyone new to Fire Emblem's combat, it's turn-based tactical battle where you move your characters around a grid-like map to fight your opponent. But while many games have combat systems like this, Fire Emblem has spiced up their recipe with several mechanics, such as various terrain types that will affect your movement and range, troops that you can hire and assign to characters to increase their stats, and perhaps the most distinct thing for the Fire Emblem series, you can receive boost from having characters stand close to each other when they attack. And unlike in the previous games, where the characters had to be shoulder to shoulder right next to each other, in this game, they can be standing diagonal to each other, or in some instances, even a few spaces away. And I cannot tell you how much of an improvement that is. I no longer have to put a character in an empty spot on the map solely so they can then boost the character I actually need to attack. I end up getting way more use out of each character's turn because I can actually have each character do something on their turn. And that's not the only improvement that this game made to the Fire Emblem formula. In the early games, if a character died, that was it. They were gone from the game. Dead meant dead. But in more recent installments, they changed that so that now you can turn permadeath on or off depending on how much of a challenge you want or how much you hate yourself. But in Three Houses, they went an extra step further and gave Byleth the power of And that concludes the joke that was put in this week's video just for me. If things get too rough, if you realize that you screwed up and a character dies or they're now in a position that doesn't look good, you can rewind time and use what you now know to rework your plan. It's not an infinite ability, you only get a certain number of tries in each battle, but I can't lie, this was the difference between victory and defeat in many battles. And I'll admit, when I first found out about this ability, I thought to myself, yeah, I'm not going to use that because it feels like cheating. It feels like it makes this game a little bit too easy. Only to eventually realize this game amped up the difficulty because they knew that they were giving you this amazing power. Because you can now rewind time and completely rework your strategy, they put you in situations where you're going to need to rework your strategy. But let's go back to the stat boost by association. Getting stronger by having your teammates closer. Having another party member next to you can boost stats such as your accuracy, damage, and chance of a critical, each of which can also be affected by the weapon that you have equipped or your position on the map. Now, what exactly determines how big of a stat you'll get from your teammates? Why, that all comes from the power of friendship. You see, the more time that characters spend with each other, the higher their connection will grow. And once it hits a certain point, you'll see a scene of the two of them exchanging a conversation that begins a story between these characters. And when you earn even more points, you'll unlock the next scene in that story, bumping their connection up higher and higher, thereby increasing their power in battle. And I love stuff like this. I love being able to see the way that individual characters relate to each other, and while I enjoyed this in previous installments, it always felt a little light. Like we always just got surface level exchanges. But in this game, they went all out. Almost every single interaction between these characters feels like something deep. In previous games, these interactions were only a few words, but here, they go on for so long, I would often just spend an entire game session just sitting down and going through each of them. And these little character interactions are important. You learn so much about these characters. Again, in the previous games, you might learn, oh, this character used to be a soldier. Or they like candy. Neat. Here, you learn really gut-wrenching, heartbreaking, important details, like how they were abused by their parents, or how their entire personality is a lie to mask their psychological trauma. No character in here feels shallow. They all have complex layered backstories, but you can only learn them by taking the time to have them interact with you or their fellow classmates. That means that there will be certain story elements for these characters, big important information, that you can totally miss if you don't have them talk to the right person. I know some people might view this as a negative because you have to work for this story and it still might be hidden because you just didn't level up the right character with another character, but I loved it because it made these characters like puzzles. With each interaction, I got another piece of them. And after working for all these pieces, I ended up viewing each character in a totally different light. And because these characters are revealed through unique interactions between characters, it makes you buy the bonds between them, giving a good explanation for why they would fight harder when they're standing side by side. And you might think it's impressive that they took each character in these houses and thought up specific exchanges between them, and you're right, that takes a lot of writing. But this game went even further with it. Each house has its own set of students specifically localized to that house. However, throughout your time at this school, you can try and cozy up to some of the other students. And if you earn enough points with them and level up the correct stats to impress them, they'll actually jump ship and come over and join your class. And while not all of them have specific exchanges and bonds with all of your original students, they will have them with some of them, meaning that's a whole other crazy combination of crossovers this game had to think of. And I have to say, I love the ability to recruit students from other houses. Nothing feels quite as good as knowing that you have a big game coming up against your crosstown rivals, and right before the match, you steal their star player. And during my playthrough on the Golden Deers, I was able to snatch away from the Eagles and Lions Sylvain, the ladies' man, Dorothea, the hot girl who still decides to hang out with the nerds for some reason, Caspar, the, Okay, full disclosure, I'm actually starting to run out of 80s movie tropes, so I'm just going to make some up. Caspar, the tiny punch man, Bernadetta, the indoor cat, Flane, the human gumdrop, Petra, basically Starfire, Felix, basically Sasuke, and Ingrid, the only one around here with any goddamn sense. One of the big strengths of previous Fire Emblem games has always been the characters, and with these detailed interactions, I felt like they succeeded in Three Houses better than they had ever done before. Except with Byleth. Yes, I know that Byleth is meant to be sort of a blank slate so that way they can serve as an avatar for the audience, but so was Robin and Corrin from the previous Fire Emblem games. In fact, heck, so are most JRPG protagonists. They still manage to maintain at least some level of personality, but Byleth is one of the most blank characters I have ever seen. The voice acting in this game is exceptional. Almost every single line of dialogue is voice acted by a very talented cast. But Byleth doesn't say a single word outside of battle. So all the emotions that we get from them in these heavy, deep bonding moments comes entirely from their face, which never changes. This is their expression throughout the entire game, no matter what is going on, and it drove me nuts. Even the game itself points out several times how she has no emotions because apparently her blank, unfeeling, cold, emotionless eyes are linked to some mystery from her past. But I can tell you after learning her past, yeah, there was no need for that. I will gladly trade in whatever weird, mysterious backstory she has for some actual freaking emotions in these scenes. But enough about Professor Hotpants, back over to the good characters. Now, what are the ways that you can level up your friendship? Well, obviously, you can have them stand side by side in battle, but you can also just have them participate in activities at the school together. You can assign them to do chores together, have lunch together, or sing in the choir together. And you, as the teacher, can get plenty of one-on-one points with each of them by doing all of this as well, or by answering requests for them, having tea with them, teaching them their weekly lessons, or by returning lost items to them that you find lying around the school. Now, each item has a description that will give you hints as to who they could belong to, so you'll need to use all the knowledge that you have acquired about them to be able to solve each of these complex riddles. Or you could just do what I did and throw everything at them until you get it right. Both work equally well.
Someone lost this? Someone lost. Someone. 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 Oh, that's mine. Thanks so much for finding it.
Nailed it! Now I know that sounds like a lot of stuff to do, and it is, but I'm not done. You can also garden, fish, do side quests revolving around certain characters that will get you special items for them to use, or do missions to help the vendors at the market. But the most important thing to do each week at the school is, well, your job. Yeah, remember, you're a teacher! You have to actually teach these kids something. When the game starts off, each character is going to have affinities and stats dedicated to specific skills and weapon use. And when you get those stats up to a certain level, then you'll be able to take entrance exams that will give your characters job titles, and those job titles will help to boost those stats even further. And there's a wide variety of ways that you can increase these characters' stats, such as having them partake in particular activities at school or by having them use their skills in battle. But the main way that you increase their skill levels is each week in class, you'll select some of your students for special one-on-one time where you get to put points directly into the exact stats that you want them to focus on. And I love this level of customization. Yes, every character has those roles the game wants you to play them as, but where's the fun in that? For some reason, I have always loved the idea of taking characters and turning them into the exact opposite of what the game wants, and in this game, you can actually do that. I don't care if this game wants this character to be the shy, nervous archer who hangs out in the back. I'm sticking her right on the front line and turning her into my tank. Who wants Bernadetta when you can create Buffadetta?
Okay, I'm gonna do it! Bernie's unstoppable.
And you wanna know what's really crazy? After everything that I just described to you, there's still more to do at this school. I'm leaving details out because there's just too much to talk about. With so much to do in this game, why would you ever want to leave the school? But I do have some problems with this game. First problem, you can't leave the school! Yes, you can leave the school to go into combat, but that's pretty much it. This game, with its character interactions and stat increasing activities, obviously took some inspiration from the recent Persona games, which I'm a huge fan of, and considering similar gameplay mechanics existed between these two franchises before, I'm totally fine with them copying a few notes. However, you know what the Persona games have that this game doesn't? Other locations. It kinda drove me nuts after a point hearing some of the characters mention, we should go into town. There is no town. This became particularly frustrating in the second half of this game when moving across the map and establishing multiple bases became a big part of the plot, and yet you still have to spend all your non-combat time at the school. It feels like a total missed opportunity, and that kind of became a problem of mine in many areas with this game. They gave you so much, but you always got that sense that there could have been more. For example, there are certain quests that you can do for specific characters that give you some backstory on them and special weapons or items. And that's awesome. Why can't we get that for every character? It's little things like that that made me wish for more. And again, I have to stress, there is a lot here. It's packed with content, but many times it felt like its reach was longer than its grasp. Like, they couldn't finish everything that they wanted for this game before it was done. It leaves this game feeling a tad unpolished. And speaking of unpolished, yikes, those graphics. Don't get me wrong, the characters themselves, good graphics, great designs, no complaints. But the backgrounds? Wow, there are some times that this game feels like it was pulled out of the oven before it was done. Like, they had to get this thing out the door. Who cares if the fruit looks like a Kinko's printout of apples you slapped on a basket? Or if the background during a cutscene is just the one shot of the room stretched and warped around to make it look like it has dimensions. We got a deadline to hit. And I know graphics aren't everything. And hey, when you're in battle and the camera is swooping in and out of combat, it actually looks really impressive. So it's not like all the graphics are bad. But when they're this bad at times, yeah, it is jarring. You can't not mention it. However, despite the graphics and the single location and Violet's cold, unfeeling dead eyes, this game still provided me with dozens of hours of fun. And a lot of that comes from the characters. Getting to know these characters and seeing the connections form between each of them as they create these unbreakable bonds, that's the magic of this game, and there is nothing that it can do that can take that away from you. Hey, so, okay, you know when you graduate from school and you all go off in your own separate directions, and then after 5 years you all come back for a big old reunion and you all start talking with each other and you see how much everyone's changed and you talk about what you've all been up to, and then you all try to murder each other? No, that's not like a common thing for every school out there. It's just for the school in this game. Ah, great. Cool. Cool. Yeah, so there's no way to fully review this game without getting into this. So I warn everyone out there, there's going to be some slight, only slight, spoiler stuff coming up in here. I'm not going to talk about anything story related, at least nothing important to the overall plot. But you are about to see some visuals in here that could ruin some surprises for you. So if you want to leave now, this is your opportunity. Okay? Everybody good? Yeah, so halfway through this game, they do a 5-year time skip, and now not only are you no longer students, you're all at war with each other, and it gets dark. I'm talking one of the former house leaders has gone mad with power, and another one is crazed for revenge, kind of dark. Claw's still cool though. I mean, he's no longer like 80s movie Bill Murray, he's now more like early 2000s indie movie Bill Murray, but yeah, you know, he's still cool. He's still cool. And I bring this up because in the first act of this game, you'd be excused for thinking that it doesn't really matter whose house you join. It'll all be the same, just with different characters. But now, seeing how everyone has been affected by the time skip and what all of their goals have been changed to, it really feels like 3 fully fleshed out campaigns. Again, I have to critique this game a bit because in certain areas it did feel like they skipped out on content, but for writing 3 storylines this different, each this long, I have to give them respect for that. And the fact that it's all contained within the exact same one game. You didn't have to go out there and buy Fire Emblem Golden Deer, Fire Emblem Black Eagles, Fire Emblem Sword and Shield. No, it's all on one game, giving you massive amounts of replay value. But that's not the only change, as there is a massive tonal shift going into the second act, but it also feels deserved as the years of battle have taken its toll on your once bright-eyed pupils. And it's not about to get easier. As I said, you're now at war with the other houses, and yeah. War has casualties. You know those students that you got to know and hung out with on the quad and shared meals with? Yeah, you're going to murder them. After I realized that's what was going to happen, I became so happy for the students I was able to recruit from the other houses, and I felt so heartbroken over the ones I couldn't. I know this is a cheap trick, but making you spend time connecting with characters only to then pull the rug out from under you and force you to fight to the death, it's one of the best examples of how video games are an amazing format for telling stories with huge emotional impacts. I like these characters. My fellow teammates had long backstories with them. And now we have to fight each other, and not all of us are coming home.
The bridge was full of soldiers, and they all died. And Ferdy was there. We killed Ferdy, Professor. He used to be our friend. Do you remember those days?
Yes, thank you, Dorothea. For a second, I had forgotten whose blood it was that was staining my hot pants. So glad you're here to remind me. However, even though the emotional weight grew exponentially in the second half, I felt like the content in general kinda took a hit. In the second half, there's no more lost items to find and return, no more requests from the market for expansion, no more special holiday events, the number of side quests relating to specific characters takes a huge drop. No, every single week at school now just becomes about increasing your stats and gain supplies. And this became repetitive quick. Go to the garden to get supplies. Go to the blacksmith to repair my weapons. Have lunch with the characters I need to boost. Level up the stats I need to level up. In the day. Do it all again next week. This game kept me so engrossed in everything that I could do for hours upon hours. But when I got to the time skip, I hit that repetitive pattern hard and it killed a lot of my enthusiasm. Remember when I said this game feels unfinished at times? This is another example of what I'm talking about. If you want to end a lot of the activities that I could do back when we were all students, that's fine because we're not students. We're soldiers at war now, so I can only assume that means that we're going to get a whole bunch of new gameplay elements after the time skip and... No, there's nothing new to do. Are you sure? It feels like there's a ton of new locations or characters or gameplay mechanics that you could introduce now to make up for what you took away and... No, there's just less to do now. Alright. But even though the second half of the game brings some new problems, the characters and the turns the story takes and the way it just messes with your emotions in the latter half still help this game finish strong, making this a great installment in the franchise and a perfect jumping on point for anyone who has always been curious. So I'm going to give this game an 8 out of 10. Thanks for tuning in, everyone. Let me know your thoughts on this game in the comments down below, and for that matter, let me know what house you ended up joining. You can also follow us around the web and let me know your thoughts on Twitter at Thorgi's Arcade or on Twitch at Professor Thorgi. Thanks for tuning in, everyone. Come back next time. I know what I'm asking is crazy. I know that this is a huge gamble, and not all of us are going to make it back alive, but I wouldn't be asking this of you if it wasn't absolutely... What is that? Oh no, that sound. I know that sound. It can't be. Not now. It's someone chewing cum in my class. I said cum. I said... I got that far in it.
Oh, please let that be one of the bloopers.
Alright, I'll put a blooper there at the end.